Muy buenas noches. I left my clock in my room. I'm going to take a bath before class. Can you remind me to call my mom? I remember to this day, nearly 20 years later, where I was and who I was talking to when I made these idiomatic blunders, revealing how unaccustomed I was to conversational English. My new college friends would correct me with amusement that I left my watch and kindly clarified that I did not, in fact, own a clock. Or they would ask me with honest confusion where in our dorm we had a tub to bathe in. At their worst, new acquaintances would smirk and mutter that, sure, they'll remember me. As I reflect upon the nearly 2 decades that I have lived in New England, my English fluency has greatly impacted the development of my identity as a Puerto Rican living in the United States. It has shaped my sense of self and belonging, from my frustrated attempts in college to be accepted by a predominantly white crowd, to my present desire for my true voice to be heard, regardless of all the insecurities that may imply. In Puerto Rico, I grew up speaking Spanish as my native language, but daily English lessons started when I was in the first grade. Throughout my school years, I consumed American culture. As a young teen, I would rush from home to watch MTV's TRL. I hope that some of the students in the audience at least recognize one of those two acronyms. I admired Sylvester Stallone as my favorite actor. Admitting this probably will cost me some credibility as an acting teacher. And I awaited with anticipation the newest episode of The Simpsons each week. The show was good back then. Like for many other Puerto Ricans of my generation who were born on the island, we were immersed in the English language, thanks to school, film, television, books, and eventually, the internet. The English language was so close to my sense of self that when I left home to study in suburban Pennsylvania, I never imagined that it would be the very thing that would distinguish me as an other in this country. Since I am a white passing person of color, my ethnicity only becomes visible to most when they learn my name, or especially when they hear me speak. As you can imagine, arriving at college implied introducing myself and speaking near constantly. My accent was even thicker back then, and the flops in conversation nearly constant. This invited frequent questions about my identity. Some were well-intentioned. Have you ever seen snow? I hadn't. Some were ignorant and unintentionally hurtful. Oh, you people celebrate Thanksgiving? Do you make like a big burrito? We don't. But the impact was still the same. A reminder that I was different. Not American, despite being a US citizen. Not white, despite the color of my skin. I like to think I have never hidden my ethnicity in the nearly 2 decades that I have lived in this country. Well, other than the times during my freshman year when I would call Domino's Pizza and when asked for a name for the order, I would simply say, Peter. It's annoying to have to spell your name and explain your identity every time you're just trying to order some cheesy bread. But I have surely tried to assimilate to American culture and pass for something I'm not. I do it to this day, if I'm being honest with myself, even if to a lesser degree now than in the early aughts. It's hard to resist the urge to do so when your college classmates exoticize your heritage, your grad school professors joke openly in class about your incorrect use of prepositions, and work colleagues underestimate your ability to teach a creative writing class. Because I'm a white passing person of color, the discrimination I have faced has largely come in the form of microaggressions. And I'm lucky for that. That I haven't been subject more frequently to overt discrimination is part of the privilege I enjoy. But those constant jabs at my identity in my pursuit to establish myself here have led me to often confuse adaptation with assimilation. Being bilingual in the United States has presented me with a catch-20 as non-native speaker. Or is it a catch-22? Is that too too many? You can correct me after the concert. The less that I speak Spanish, the more imperfect my native language becomes. The more that I speak English, the more my adopted language reveals everything that I'm not. My identity, however, is not defined by either of these languages or even the cultures that they represent in my life. Rather, my identity is the product of imperfectly speaking both languages. I find pride in accepting that my sense of self may forever be in flux as much as my mastery of both languages. Over the years, my accent has softened, but I will never lose it. Idiomatic expressions are more familiar to me now, but I still often misuse them. And there are plenty of sounds in the English language that still evade me. I'm not just cold, I am freezing. I love chopping for chews, especially if they're sheep. But I no longer wish to shed these imperfections, at least not so that I can pass for something that I'm not. These cracks in my speech are my anchors to my lengua madre, el español. They are a constant reminder to me, and just as importantly to others, of who I am. Muchas gracias, feliz Navidad y próspero año nuevo.